And the redundancy, because pardon the language, the fuckery is endless. And so
Constant. It's constant.
gone, Shannon, gone are the days where I'm allowed on YouTube and I rely on YouTube to process and record and upload my stream. I now have 2 and 3 different mechanisms for recording. So, all right. Absolutely wonderful to see you. We were very worried about you. And what, just give us a rundown from normal day to, wow, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you right now, it's just smoke and still fires here. So, and today's supposed to be 90 degrees or a little more. So it's like red alert time, and we're not supposed to travel because they're like taking over the roads. They've got lots of crew out there. They're doing crazy things, back burning. I don't know. There's helicopters and hopefully we won't have to evacuate again.
So fighting fires with other fires is similar to fighting cancer with more cancer.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I don't understand that practice, how it's useful. And they actually wait till it's like drier and hotter to do it because that's when they can light the fires. So they've been burning like on 199 or highway here. All these, I just, when we go through there's just more fires because they've started them. They're using drones to start them as well. And they're just sitting there watching them. And they're like, this is how we work on the fire. And supposedly that's going to, burn more trees down so that the fire can't spread. That's the idea.
Right.
Obviously then you have another fire to deal with. So I don't know about that.
Right. The purpose of back burning is having the fire burn itself out. And
Bill, everybody's got that. Bill, everybody's got that. We're going to beyond that, to throwing the bullshit flag. Right. Whenever the government does something, we have a concern. Okay,
and they're definitely using drones now.
Yeah, I read the report. This is an official online thing. They update you every day what the activity is, what they're using. And so they said they're using drip torches and drones to do the drip torching as well.
Which is fascinating because the government has outlawed civilian drones everywhere the fires are. They've outlawed them in Hawaii. They've outlawed them in California. They've outlawed them in Canada. Really odd. Now they use they help themselves to the drones for surveillance and starting more fires. But we're not allowed to use drones to see what they're up to. So
they say it's because it's interfering with their signals and they can't fly if we fly, which is like absurd.
That's no different than using a cell phone on an airplane. That airplane's gonna crash because you are trying to use your cell phone.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can tell you how this, what went down here. It was August 15th, so about a month now, and no fires here. We had actually a really cool summer, really wet spring, so we were like, we're not gonna have any fires because it's been like we had tons of snow melt, and we were actually like, when's it gonna get hot? Right.
Question. Okay.
Hot summer.
August 15th. August 15th is the Assumption of the Queen of Heaven, the exact same day that the Jesuits got their start in 1534 in Paris. Just a coincidence. Just throwing that out there.
And it was the day after my birthday, so nothing significant.
Oh, it was a few days before my birthday. We were getting ready to have a few days off, like a mini vacation, and we were in that mode. And and so it finally just started getting hot. It was very hot. And it was a lot drier, it was very dusty. And we had this little freak kind of storm come in that morning. And at first I was like, oh, rain, amazing, that's great, and it wasn't much rain though. It was a lot of thunder and lightning. And we did see some lightning. Ultimately, they determined that was the cause of our fire. Now, however, there were several other fires that cropped up strategically near here within the 2 to 3 following days when nobody was doing anything to stop the first one. And there was no more lightning. So I don't really understand how those started. They weren't nearby. It wasn't like this fire started those fires. They were in other locations in the area. So don't know what happened there. not even sure if really lightning started this. I mean, that could be a good cover to say, well, there was lightning and that's why. But
Might have been a UFO, Shannon. Might have been a UFO. What's the largest big city to you?
Largest big city. We don't have big cities around here for a long time. Medford, so
Okay,
it would be
good.
the largest. Yeah.
County of what county?
This is Del Norte. So they basically been burning like our whole county. Is what it feels like. Well, here's the thing that was suspicious, and this came from a Forest Service person we know who was like, what's going on here? Because he said, why are they doing the containment line miles from these fires? It looks like their containment line is like around our whole county, like they just want to burn the whole county, and yeah, it's been really, well, here's the thing, we didn't even get an evacuation notice. When this fire started, we actually had to evacuate ourselves because we saw it coming at us. Like, I mean, it's across from us. This fire started to just when the winds kicked up, it just flew down the mountain. It was like liquid, it was like a lava flow. I mean, crazier than that. And it was just so fast that we had to get out of here because it's coming to the road. We're going to be blocked, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's just grown into this massive. The thing about this too, that is everybody, not conspiracy theorists, every person I've talked to and just overheard conversations in town, and this would be Crescent City. And yeah, I would just hear people saying, why didn't they just put this out when it was small? Because that day, all day long, no winds, ideal conditions for just doing something about the fire. There's a road up to it. They could have dropped water on it. But nobody did anything. We didn't even like worry about evacuating for most of the day because it was like we were watching it. We're like, oh, it's not doing anything. It's not moving. And they know about it because there's helicopters flying. And we're like, oh, they're going to contain it, right? I mean, that's the plan. They're going to do something. We called in. They're like, oh, yeah, we got people on it. We know about it. We're monitoring it. Then we found out, well, yeah, they're just monitoring. They weren't doing anything. And then we found out they didn't do anything because they said they didn't have any resources here. We had no firefighters, nobody to do anything. We had a helicopter that could watch. We had a few helicopters watching it, but we didn't have a helicopter with a bucket, for water for 4 days at least. So at least 4 days passed before anybody did anything. They let it jump over the highway. It spread, basically miles before they started to do anything. They had to evacuate several towns, several off-grid communities. So we left when we saw that fire coming, and we left in a hurry. We did have some things packed. We were a little more prepared than probably a lot of people because we've lived off grid all this time. And we had like a little tiny cargo trailer we had actually lived out of before. And so we kind of had that hooked up and we had our stuff in it. And we got out and we had to keep moving. We stayed nearby the first night thinking, oh, we'll just be gone like a night. We just want to be sure, like we'll be on the safe side. But then we find out nobody's working on it and nothing's happening. And this is the news we got for several days. Nobody's doing anything. They don't have resources because our resources went to Idaho. And then Idaho people came here. So we didn't have the locals who care about the community. I have friends who actually volunteered to help when they didn't have anybody, who were like capable people with chainsaws, and they wouldn't let them in. He said the attitude was so condescending and patronizing too, like, oh, that's so cute of you, but you don't know anything you can't, And I just got the runaround. I'd be calling every day, trying to find out information, not getting anybody with any authority who knows anything about what's happening on the ground. Even the operations manager, so-called, doesn't know what's happening. We got all this different information. We were told basically that we should expect our houses to burn down, that nobody was down on the ground, nobody was protecting them, even though we'd done a lot of work on the property to protect it. We had fire safe council out here having meetings with them saying we're going to, and they actually ultimately they did pull through, and people had been on the ground here and they had secured our perimeter. They had moved the propane tanks we'd forgot to move and things like that, but nobody could tell us that. It was like they acted like it was secret information and they couldn't share it. They couldn't even get it. People we knew in these like fire councils and stuff didn't even know. And eventually we got somebody who knew something who could tell us that we had a home left. But that whole time we're sitting there waiting for 20 days, not knowing, being told that it went through our property for sure. probably expect like the worst, and so we were just, but even in spite of that news, we decided to envision our house being intact. We had a lot of friends doing the same thing and praying and everything, and we were like, yeah, our house is there, somehow it's there, and it was and is, and we have this kind of oasis of greenery around it. So I have to thank everybody who helped make that happen. I think we have that power, and we made that happen. So
Praise God. Shannon, this is my friend. Bill, this is my friend Brent, who is also a fan of yours and a collaborator. Are you worried, as my Ghost Ninja, Erica, the Ghost Ninja in the chat, says, that we have a similar exploitation issue that we had during the scamdemic, that they utilize this to push you out, make you shelter in place, and then you had a toxin oasis, a radiation oasis. Do you have a concern now that they utilize this as an opportunity to erect towers and bring in things that you would not have allowed had you been aware of?
I don't know yet. I mean, I haven't seen that yet. We were concerned. Honestly, it was a weird feeling. I sort of wanted the cell tower to burn, but it didn't, because but the thing is, it not burning is better, because if it had burned, they would just put a new one, improve it, upgrade it, whatever, maybe take the opportunity to put more. I don't think that's a plan, or I don't see why we don't really have any people out here that, I mean, who knows, they make up excuses. I'm sure there might be talk of like, we need better monitoring, so we need more of that. And I don't know how much we can do to stop it. I'm certainly will try to find out and to do what I can, but I don't think it's like known that, I mean, here's the thing. I don't really like disclosing where I am, and still people don't know exactly where I am, but it feels like I get then I'm targeted. And I don't, even just to say like, well, there's electrosensitives out here, they found refuge. Oh, really? Let's do something about that, because that's like, let's get rid of it. We did feel that off-grid communities in general out here are being targeted, because all of our off-grid communities in all directions, hours from us, had to evacuate, and they all had fires near them. And so we felt like, wow, they really want to like get rid of us, like living like this. We're all growing our own food, and we're off grid, and but and some of them have more wealth than others. In the wealthier community, we're finally like, you need to come in here and do something about safeguarding our homes, and our properties. So they actually came in and like created these ponds, they call them, and were spraying the houses and stuff, because the fire was really close at the time. And they did finally contain that fire, but there's just, it did remind me a lot of the scamdemic and the beginnings of that, where in terms of what it did in terms of disrupting everybody and economy and sheltering in place and road closures, and suddenly these authority figures that don't really have authority, like Forest Service and everybody, and saying, you can't come here, you can't do this, you have to stay there, we're going to tell you when it's safe. And it's like, it's not safe right now, it's not safe for you to travel. We kept trying to find windows of opportunity to come in a back way or something to secure more of our valuables. No, you can't come here. Even the other day, when after we've been here 2 weeks now, and my partner went to town, he actually went to do a job off property, and as he came back in, he was being told he can't come in, this is closed, our road. And he's like, I live there, I've been there for 2 weeks, like, how can I not? What are you saying? She's like, sorry, you just can't. It's like, we closed it. And he's like, no, I have to go home. And they had this standoff, and it was like 20 minutes of him being like, I'm going. And she's like, you can't go. And she's just some young girl, she doesn't know. He's like, just radio somebody. Like, finally she radios somebody and realizes like she didn't know that he was allowed and all this, but just the fact that these kids really are like, have this authority, and they don't even know what's going on. And it's not up to us. It's not up to the locals to be involved, to say, this is our place, this is our property, our forest, we're going to take care of it. If it had been up to us, we would have gotten these fires out right away. We wouldn't let them burn for miles, I mean, and then you have to ask, why are they letting everything burn? Well, for one thing, the immediate thing I see is lots of jobs. Once it became a national disaster, we get the FEMA money, we got them in here, we got Red Cross, thousands of people now, all over the place. Where did they come from? We didn't have any of that before? Why don't we just have people waiting on salary? Because the problem is a lot of these people are contracted for the day, and they don't make money. Firefighters don't make money unless there are fires. Unfortunately, that's how it's set up. So unless there are disasters, disaster relief, people don't make money, so they need the jobs. And so they probably in management are looking at this thing going, well, let's let it go a little more because we'll have some work, and their excuse is, well, it's good for forests to have fire, so we should let it burn for a while and then just monitor it, and then they're like,
they
oh,
call
wait,
that
now it's out of control.
reforestation. Yeah, they call it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw in
Mhm.
the patented Johnny Cerrucci, Bill Munsell bullshit flag on resources. We have in Medford, we have several tankers, that shoot out those flame retardant. We have the planes. We even have the smaller planes that pick up water, scoops up water and dump it. We've had helicopters that have the buckets. We have the resources. They used Idaho's fires as an excuse. The Idaho fires and the other fires in the state of Oregon were very, very small compared to what you have. A lot of the fires in Idaho and Oregon were in remote places and they weren't that big. Yours is in an interesting situation because they've always, every year, we've had fires. Wairika was totally wiped out at one time a couple of years ago from all these fires. So, there's an agenda going on here. And to give a lame excuse why they could not, put out the fire, like you said, it was a very small fire. It wouldn't have taken so long. I used to fight fire
all day. Yeah, it's like it would have been really easy, and to not have resources to put out a fire that's less than an acre, that's burning less than an acre for several hours, doesn't make any sense. And it's like close to where we supposedly usually have, where the fire people are all kind of stationed and everything. And it's just this, we haven't even, this forest supposedly hadn't burned in like 100 years either. Suddenly it's burning. It's a rainforest. It's not really like, yes, it's dry in the summer, but it's just not the place that, and they're going to say climate change. I'm sure the media is saying climate change, global warming, when we had a cooler summer than normal, we had a wetter year than normal. That's not true. It's just not true. And, the thing that's interesting, I want to mention this, I think it's really important to understand, is that forests are becoming more flammable as we have more EMF exposures, not because of just the EMF itself heating things and creating pockets of heat, which happens, you can target and have pockets of heat, but because the trees are defending themselves against the attack, they create more terpenes. And terpenes are very flammable. And so when a tree is under attack, under threat, it's going to, basically bleed out these terpenes, which we know as like sap, right? And we know that like pinion pitch, like that pitch is very flammable. And you can see it on the trees here, like these beads of it, they're under attack. They're being assaulted by radiation, and so they are more vulnerable now to fire, I think, and they know, and I think somebody knows that it's like easier to start the fires, to keep them going, to spread them, because of this flammability factor, like that's increasing that, potential. So, and just the fact that, you can use like these microwave weapons, millimeter wave weapons, or we call them direct energy weapons, to create fires. Lockheed Martin has videos showing their arsenal of direct energy weapons, which are silent and invisible. And you can use planes and you can use drones, and you can like take out, they show like a drone or a plane being taken out by their weapons, like blowing up, so you can, obviously you could probably, like, when it's really dry and hot, like target that somewhere in a forest and start a fire pretty easily without even having anybody on the ground or anybody aware of this. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
When you talk about the tree sap, anytime, especially in the summertime, when it gets very, very hot, those trees do secrete a lot of that, and it's because of the heat. So the hotter there is, the more, it's gonna seep out.
Yeah.
Brent, you have something? Mute. You're muted. Muted.
Oh, Bill's muted. He's
Brent.
not talking well.
Still muted, pal. Lower left-hand corner. You're
Yes. Hey,
channeling
you
George
there?
right now. You're channeling George right now. Okay.
I
here we
know.
go.
Hey, I'm sorry. You got me now?
I got name it Charlie. Go
All
ahead.
right. Yeah. But one, I wanted to say thank you for all the information you put out, as far as the electrical waves and the practical knowledge to cut off your router at night and things of that nature. So, and I've been a big proponent of DMSO for a long time. I'm a licensed physical therapy assistant, have been for like 25 years, and I'm no longer working because of a disability, but the I've seen DMSO work a lot. But I just wanted to add in that they're doing this on purpose. I mean, sometimes you might not have the names, the places, and the dates, but there's an old adage here that how do you get a 0 on a test is if you know all the answers. These people that are doing all of these things, the Maui fire, I was doing home health care during the initial rollout of, all the C-19 horse shit. But either way, long story short is, I had a letter signed by my governor, here in South Carolina, that I was allowed to be on the roads because, I was emergency personnel. I was, the tip of the spear, that we had to provide health care in the home setting because, that there was less germs there. And, they made sure that we gowned up and, we thankfully, my religious exemption for the shot went through no problem whatsoever because I wasn't taking the shot no matter what. I was going to lose my profession if I had to, but thankfully the Lord saw fit to let that exemption go through very quickly. And but long story short is I watched within a 5 to 7 day period them erecting these 5G towers, all during especially that first month or two during the hoax, the corona hoax. I mean, they didn't slow down at all building those towers. So, and that's names, places, and dates. I can tell you, I saw them go up in a quick hurry during that initial month or two of the C-19. So, but thank you for all your work.
Shannon, before I bring George in, I wanted to couple of things in relation to government control, relying on the government to help us during a disaster, and they invariably make the disaster worse. We saw this because the spotlight was on Hawaii. We did not know that this was going on in California, in Bill's Oregon, in Idaho, in Arizona, in Canada. Is they brought their coercive force, they brought their guns and their badges, and they brought their apparatchiks, to use an old Cold War term that probably only Bill and I and maybe Brent would understand, but George would understand too, apparatchiks, to go and block your egress when you need to get out because the fire is at your back, and block your ingress when you need to come back because your family and everything else is there. And so, very typical of the government. You need them to help, and instead they make it 10 times worse. I don't know if you've seen this in particular. I think Darnell found this for me. The federal government got involved in Hawaii, and the EPA forbade Hawaiian residents to return to their homes because there were toxins there, as that is always the case with a natural fire. There's toxins there. And so the EPA said, you're not allowed to return to your home until we spray our toxins to cancel out the other toxins. And everyone, I guess, bought that incredible bullshit, which our first thought is, okay, if you are using an accelerant, and I'm not worried about any kind of satellite-based directed energy weapons because the vast majority of that is bullshit anyway. If you're using anything like an aircraft, a drone, using an accelerant to make a fire much worse, well, you want to cover that up, don't you? You're gonna spray another chemical, another toxin. Never before have I seen residents being forbidden to return because the government needs to spray toxins to cancel out other toxins from a previous fire. So I just wanted to throw that out
always
there.
Worrying. I mean, when they say, like, just here too, it was suspicious when they're like, you can't come back to your homes, even in cases where it was safe. It wasn't really safe for us, I have to say, like these roads and everything. But for a lot of other people, they could have come back in, and they were just like, the fact that they can be like, you can't see what's happening here, you can't be near here, you can't watch this, you can't use your drone to watch it, so then that just gives carte blanche for them to do whatever that they see fit, which could be all kinds of things, like you said, and then covering up what they did later with these sprays and things. Yeah, I mean, it's just they have
telling it's like during the scandemic, telling the healthy to shelter in place. You can't quarantine the healthy. Are you kidding me? What? Meanwhile, they're erecting huge numbers of 5G towers at the schools, at the libraries, especially the schools where you're mandatory to send your child in for indoctrination and poisoning, and the child will be thoroughly vaccinated for you to utilize the public school as your babysitter if you're really that stupid. Let me pause and let George jump in. George, tell me you have something related to the fires and or Shannon's personal experience.
Hello, Shannon. Okay. A couple of things. I live in Northern California, Sonoma County, California, just north of San Francisco. And for the last, say, 5-6 years, we've been ravaged by these, quote, wildfires, close quote. And I remember it was basically deja vu all over again, to quote Yogi Berra, regarding what just happened in Maui. And we had a bunch of fires literally in my backyard. I mean, they got as close as like maybe 2-3 miles away. And the people who had their neighborhoods destroyed, they weren't told, oh, you can't come in because there's toxins. So this is a new story they've just come out with. So, but there seems the government, they say, well, some toxins are bad for you and some are good for you. We decide which is which.
Yeah, by the way, George is the groundskeeper at Bohemian Grove, so he can get you in, Shannon, if you ever need to. He's pretty close there.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that's exactly right, though. I mean, that this idea that they can tell us, what's a bad toxin, what's a good toxin.
And Shannon, it's a relatively new phenomenon, especially for those of us that live in more rural areas, that like, you knew if you went to New York City or Washington, D.C., or there would be cameras everywhere, surveillance, and you would be told where to go and where not to go. But literally there was a time change with, COVID. I don't believe in COVID. I think, like you believe, is a lot of it's probably this magnetic energy. They've changed some of the vibrations. They've changed. Basically, we're just being assaulted at all levels. But that being said, we're feeling more and more like China, even in the rural areas. Like I'm a grown man. I've been overseas. Military guy, and I've never been given a sheet of paper by a governor to drive on a road. It's ridiculous, and I'm still pissed about that.
Brent's being humble. He's a former member of SEAL Team 4, so
wow,
he knows what he's talking about.
Well, that's the thing. It's like just this idea that we have to conditioning us to require a pass. Require a like
sheet of paper to ride on the road.
That is right. And that should never, they're using so-called emergencies and fabricated emergencies to get us to comply with these kind of measures where there were more restrictions and get us conditioned to that. Well, it's for our own good. So it's okay to now just suddenly get rid of all the liberties we're supposed to have under our Constitution and this exception under the emergency, and that's just, and the thing is, these fires, to me, it's like, obvious that they're playing that climate change card, and that's the next thing. They're getting us used to restrictions based on these disaster, so-called natural disasters, but they're saying it's man-made, it's from us, it's because we're driving our cars, and we're daring to consume things that we consume.
They're beating the
and that's
drum
why,
with the climate change and
right. And that's what's going to
restrictions.
be, and it's scary. Fires are scary. So it's like they can use these images, they can scare people, say there's going to be more fires and more fires unless you comply with all these new restrictions we want you to comply with, which just basically is Agenda 2030. If you read Agenda 2030, the blueprint for sustainability, so-called,
Right.
It's all about locking us into smart cities under constant surveillance, severe restrictions, and monitoring everything we do, and down to like what you eat, how much you eat of what you eat, and when and where you buy it from, and everything. I mean, absolutely every minutia of your life under. And
they're providing cover and concealment for the 5G towers, the just increased energy patterns, all the chemtrails, all the fluoride in the water, all this cumulative effect of additives in the food. I mean, they're killing us bite by bite, water by water, sip by sip, and with the chemtrails and the 5G. So we're being assaulted on all things, but all the press and all the scientists and all the experts say, no, it's just global warming, So they're putting the blame on us.
Right. Exactly. They're doing it, but they'll put the blame back on us.
Right.
That's typical for sure.
Couple of things from great comments from the chat. Daniel brings up the melted cars. Very suspicious of this. I think what they are doing with a lot of these viral videos is to distract, where we're consumed with this directed energy weapon, and we lose sight of, well, how did the fire start in the first place? And I personally feel that there's an excellent chance that you have operatives going out and burning these vehicles with white phosphorus and other chemical chemical fires, chemical white phosphorus grenades, and so forth, as a distraction to get people to not see how obvious it is that these fires, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take some sort of a high-tech Star Wars weapon to start a fire, especially when you've created the environment in the first place. And also in relation to this Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, this brings me back to, oh my goodness, years ago, where I saw reports on how they are encouraging people particularly in London and in these other paradise locations, to now live out of a container, off of a container ship. They're prefab. Here, I'll show you examples. Prefab apartments made out of a container. Paradise, absolute paradise, where you have everything you need in a small little 16 by 8 square foot apartment, and it's just you don't even need anything. You'll rent everything, and you'll be happy because you won't own anything. So they're definitely where they want us to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Around the horn here, I want to take advantage of the fact that we have Shannon. William, anything else to ask Shannon about and her personal experiences and in relation to the fires?
Not so much in relation to the fires. I do want to bring your attention to, hang on a second. Let me see if I can find that.
Shannon, how about the utilization? Bill, as you're looking that up, Bill, not to step on you.
It's right here. Can you guys see this all right?
Part of it, yeah.
I got it on full screen.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is Shannon's new book. If I can get it back up here. Back to there we go. For some reason, I got it blown up for some reason. There
you go. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Just wanted to bring attention to see how's the book coming.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm still trying to had some good sales the first month and trying to promote it still. So Definitely. Yeah, that, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is actually mentioned in here. And my next book I'm working on, I have 2 books I'm working on. One is about this whole climate hoax stuff. So all my experiences recently will definitely, yeah, I'll be using that for writing that. But unfortunately, I'll have that direct experience. Johnny, I was going to say what you said about the direct energy weapons. I wonder if you think they're like, if it's like the Cold War, the threat, the supposed threat of like A-bombs that are not, that's exaggerated and it's not based in reality to get us to be fearful and compliant. So this idea that there's some kind of super weapon that can annihilate everybody, and so you have to be afraid of that now, and it's probably not accurate, like you said. Maybe they're doing other things to make it appear that that's possible, but that potential isn't what they're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. The worst of both worlds. I do not dismiss threats of advanced technology, malignant advanced technology, such as some sort of nanoparticulate or nanotoxin, a residual in the vaccine that is somehow being utilized as a targeting mechanism for another weapon. We call it, in the military, we call it painting. When you have a laser designator and you paint the target, and then usually an air-launched munition will follow that, ride the laser beam to the target. I do not dismiss that in any way, shape, or form. On the other hand, I absolutely would say, for instance, this is what we do with the atomic weapon stuff from World War II. From what I've seen, an air-launched atomic munition, such as an A-bomb, was absolutely ridiculous, complete fraud. Do I say there's no such thing as a mass casualty weapon? No. Do I say there's no such thing as an atomic weapon? No, I have no idea. But I can tell you without a doubt that an atomic bomb dropped from B-29 never occurred in 1945. That the vast majority of the Cold War was based on baseless fears stoked up by the machine. So it's the worst of both worlds. I absolutely feel it's the worst of both worlds. We just had a scare here locally where that an illegal alien, and I didn't get the details like an idiot because I'm so angry that I refused to look into this. I had just asked my wife. So I said, okay, so we had an illegal alien Brazilian murderer escape from prison and just walk around the neighborhood for 11 days. And I had to create new security operating procedures for my wife to go and come from work because she's right in the heart of this location that he's wandering around. And so I finally asked her, I said, okay, so he murdered his girlfriend. Was the girlfriend also an illegal alien? She said, no. I said, well, what exactly? How did he murder the girlfriend? He stabbed her 40 times. What was the reason why he murdered the girlfriend? Well, turns out he was a murderer from Brazil, and she had threatened to out him here in America. So he stabbed her some 40 times to keep his secret that he had just waltzed across the border, the wide open border, an already murderer from Brazil. And now he's murdered an American citizen here in the United States. And he walked around, and finally an elite unit with all of their special tech gear, dressed like they're retaking Fallujah, they finally tracked him down after it was turned over to some sort of federal government. Now, I've got guys, I got a guy at the gym who looked at me and said, Johnny, please, they're just incompetent, okay? He wandered around for 11 days because the local cops and then the FBI and then the federal marshals and then the Pennsylvania State Police just didn't know what the heck they were doing, Johnny. Come on, don't be as a conspiracy theorist. But the bottom line is, whether they're incompetent or not, they had a mass state of fear here that they, I don't doubt, cultivated. So the fear, actually, the fear factor was a factor. I don't doubt that for a minute. That there's a long-winded answer for you, Shannon.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. No, it's exactly it. The fear is always in a way, it's the more powerful weapon. I mean, obviously there are always people who do get killed by a murderer or their house burns or they die in a fire. But the fear is the weapon that keeps everybody else who isn't under threat or who is safe or who may not ever be under threat in compliance with the orders, with the supposedly these people, let's hand over our authority to these people who said that they were now in charge, and because we don't know what we're doing and we're afraid, and they obviously do, and we'll just let them handle it. And it's really like a lack of self-responsibility. We need to take more responsibility in our own lives and stop handing it away, because that just, it's going to create a situation in which we'll be the prisoners. We're actually actively putting out fires ourselves on our property now that we're back, because we have these roots, we have these stumps that are just burning still. They've been burning for a month, and normally that's okay. They'll smolder, they'll burn themselves out eventually. That's why they're not really doing anything about them. But they have said, oh, now that it's getting hotter and drier again and winds are changing, some of these stump fires are going to turn into real fires again. And we're watching that, situation. So like nobody's doing it on our property. So I went around yesterday, I spent hours throwing dirt and water, buckets of water, carrying buckets of water in my car to the fires, because they were starting to get bigger. They were just smoldering, and now I'm seeing active flames. So I'm spending my time like being a firefighter, like doing this myself. I'm going to do more of that today, just to safeguard our property while they're working on the other stuff. I don't know what they're doing, back burning and creating a.
Real quick, Shannon, let me ask you, while you're saying that, let me ask you, have you ever war gamed what right looks like? For instance, there is a Ukrainian Jew that I think is absolutely controlled by the CIA that it still is fun to listen to. Michael Malice is his pseudonym. Talks about anarchy as the key, as that communities will pool together and create their own cops, create their own firefighters. I don't know that I would go that far to counter the extreme of how much the government is the problem. But what in your mind does right look like, given that things are so wrong right now?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like, geez. In terms of what happened here, it's like, I think that right would have been the people who live here and who had the experience, working on their own, making their own decisions about what to do with the fire. People who live in the forest here saying, I want to be involved in this, and I can be involved, and I'm going to help, make the decision, go in there myself, safeguard my property myself. Just having people, like I said, there were people offering to do that, and they weren't allowed. Weren't allowed by people who don't even live here, who came in suddenly taking these positions of authority. I also feel like, I think it's great to have trained firefighters and all this and the equipment. But like I said earlier, I think they should be salaried positions, not contracted. So there's no motivation to create fires or let them burn so that you can make more money. You have a good salary. It doesn't even make sense, like financially, for the government to let things like this happen and then put billions of dollars into it for disaster relief, kind of throw the money at it after the fact. Why not just throw the money at it before the fact? It's a lot less money. You could have a lot of people on really good pay who don't even have to work most of the time. In fact, they'd be motivated to put fires out right away, because then they won't have to work the rest of the year. They can sit on their asses and just make lots of money, just to be there. Californians, we get taxed so heavily. Why would we not have, in supposedly an area that's fire prone in the summer, not have a helicopter on hand with a bucket? We have tons of water around, and we just didn't have that one thing that could have saved us all this, all this.
They don't want to solve the problem.
No. So it's so easy to me. It's simple, and it's like an easy thing to just have that in place so that we don't have these crazy fires going out of control, whether or not they were set intentionally. And they wouldn't be set intentionally, again, if you don't have the motivation to have fires. There are lots of cases where they still find arsonists who are firefighters. Sometimes they're caught and they're put in prison because they started the fire so they could have money to feed. You can't really blame them. They need to feed their families. That's their job. If they don't have work, they don't feed their families, so They got to have a fire to have work. That's just, there's so many systems like that we have in place where the motivation for people who are supposedly there to help and to put these things out is to start them and to let them grow. That's the motivation. So even in the sense of, and I don't know much about this, but some people have mentioned like salvage logging interest, and that in the 90s, there were a lot of fires that were started by logging companies who wanted to log places they couldn't otherwise. And so that they'd start fires so that then they can at least be allowed a certain amount of salvage logging. And so that's when there's trees that are fallen already, or they're like in danger of falling and they're near the highway. And we've already seen a lot of this. We still have this kind of situation where going to town for us right now normally takes an hour, takes 2 hours or more each way, because we have to wait on the road. Well, we have to wait on our forest road for trucks going by sometimes. And then we have to wait on the highway to get piloted, led through in a single lane, because they're cutting the trees down all over the place. They got them stacked up. And so there's that operation, and they're also burning. They're still starting these fires on the highway too, and this whole corridor. And so it's completely altered. We had forests there, basically no forests on a lot of these parts of the corridor. Half of our forest is like black and brown. And I'm actually really grateful that it's not worse, because I was imagining, like more devastation. So it's, even though there's this huge burn area, it doesn't mean all of that is burned. Like we still have a lot of forest pockets of, greenery around. And I think a lot of that actually been burned didn't die, and it'll come back quickly. So I think it's not as bad. And this is the other thing. And they want it to look worse, right? So the images people have in the media who don't live here, and the map, even just looking at the fire map, like it's scary looking. And they can use that to say, like, look at how much burned. And it actually didn't all burn, just to get people again on board with this idea that this is happening because of you and your selfish behavior, and you want to own things, and you want to have freedoms, and freedoms have a price. And look at all this devastation, and you're causing it for being a selfish, like for daring to care about like anything of your own and to have anything of your own. Like that. And this is coming to us from billionaires who have so much, right? And it's amazing because it's never about them and their usage of their private jets or anything. It's always comes back to the little guys. And it reminds me of like ancient or superstitious cultures that believed that anytime they had like drought, they had to sacrifice somebody to like a god, their gods, to get the rain, right? And so it's almost like now we think, it's like we sinned and we're evil. We need a sacrifice. We need a sacrifice to appease these new gods, these gods from the WEF, so that like and they're even trying to say, like, even sort of like a lot of us know there's these like weather manipulation technologies, right? Well, even some of that could be exaggerated to get us to think that they're the new gods. They have the power to change all the weather and to do anything. So if we're good and we do what they want, then they'll stop the fire. They won't have more fires. They'll bring the rain in. They'll like forgive us. They'll bless us with rain, right? So it's this idea that like we have to sacrifice. I mean, look at the Gretas of the world. Like they're going around saying, we got to sacrifice. Like we got to like look at what's happening. Like we're evil. Like our parents are evil. They've been doing evil things. Like we have to do something now about that. And so, which is just not, there's no, when you really research this and you look into the science, there is no real science. There's none of this is true. This carbon, problem.
If I can interrupt real quick,
Yeah.
we haven't had real science in a long time. So
No.
hundreds of years, just in our direct, I raised 2 children, stayed away from the shots, any of them. And, and 24 years ago, when my daughter was born, we did a midwife through the hospital instead of home. But, even back then, it was like, do not let that child out of your sight, because there's a few Nightingale nurses in there that will take that baby and give them a shot, because they're like, these parents are too stupid to know better and to keep them from getting polio or smallpox. So we'll at least give them a couple of shots, and nurses do that crap. I mean, I'm sure it's not many, don't whether they say the extreme or the worst case makes poor law, or the extreme makes poor law. But I do know this, that back in that day, we knew enough that, the baby stayed in the birthing room with us, and we would not, I didn't let my daughter out of my sight, because it wasn't so much the doctor, it was a renegade nurse I was afraid going to give my daughter a shot that I didn't want her to have. And I had, I learned early on in my medical career, do not mention that you didn't vaccinate your children, because I've had many of people say, I hope, or I shouldn't say many, less than a dozen, but more than 6, say, what are you going to feel like if your daughter winds up with smallpox or polio? What are you going to feel like? What are you going to feel? Almost like they were rejoicing in the fact that something might happen to my daughter. And there's been a few people that wouldn't let our children play with their children because we were unvaccinated. Finally, I just, had told my wife, we're just not going to bring it up. Just not going to cast your pearls amongst swine. Even, I'm a born again Christian, but going into church settings, and, even if we were doing home church, you don't let people know that your children are unvaccinated, because, man, you want to piss somebody off. You don't want to talk about religion or politics. Don't talk about your children being unvaccinated, because people will turn on you.
Oh, yeah. They'll report you to Child Protective Services, have your kids taken away. I bet your kids are so much stronger and healthier and
they're healthy.
smarter.
Yeah, they're very healthy. I mean, they've had some illnesses, but nothing like and I'm not too worried about cancer either. I mean, anything could happen. We could have died in a car wreck on a vacation, so every breath we take is the Lord's, but I'm going to take and protect them the best that I can with the, what's that old saying? Give me the wisdom, or let me, I have trouble with word finding. I have Huntington's disease, but Lord, give me, or help me accept the things I can't change, change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Know the difference. Yeah. They say that in the AA meetings. Right?
Yeah.
Al-Anon,
I'm
right?
a recovering alcoholic too. So,
Well, I've been to Al-Anon a lot, so I know the 12 steps and everything.
Yeah. With the Huntington's, my brain, boy, alcohol or any drug goes straight. The blood-brain barrier doesn't work properly anymore. So, but I'm thankful I'm pretty healthy otherwise, other than the neck up.
I wanted to bring up one of the things that you said, Shannon, and what right looks like was absolutely spot on, which is that people involved and people making decisions have to have a vested interest in the well-being of the community. No brainer. And this is why I hone right in on such things as political figures and leaders never having anything to do with the local community. That we call that not born here. And the biggest example that we've seen is the Roman Catholic Church. They go out of their way to make sure that all of their parish clergy, their priests and so forth, are from way out of the community. So there's no empathy for those in the community when the crimes are committed. And this is almost always the case for political figures, for leaders. Look, the chief of police of, was it Maui County? Oh, what is that clown's name again?
I don't know.
The one that
this is definitely like a war tactic, though,
Arizona,
that you're talking about. That you
Las
take
Vegas.
You take same with soldiers,
Peltier.
like
John Peltier. The guy that you see this, especially for chief of police. Military being chain of command, toiling, doing your job and doing it well and gaining your experience so that you can advance in maturity and leadership. And then the decision makers go and completely ignore your resume and go pull some clown from way out on the outskirts that has no vested interest, and they give him the top leadership position that you were vying for. This is the case again and again and again, particularly for chief of police. And turns out that a clown like Peltier was one of the guys involved in the Las Vegas bump stock mass shooting. And as soon as he comes in, he demands a raise so that now as he steps in, he's making, as chief of police, over $200,000. And no different from a little Jesuit cockroach like Anthony Fauci, who was an institution for 5, 6, 7 different presidential administrations, making more than a United States president at over $400,000 of taxpayer paid salary, which he keeps through in his retirement. So I'm still paying for that Inquisitor Jesuit cockroach.
Oh, wow.
400 and over and above all the copyrights and patents and sweetheart deals that cockroach continues to rake in. So vested interest.
Speaking of taxes, it's like the tax money, people forget that like the disaster relief money is our money. Again, you know, it's always tax money. So like, why didn't we just have those resources already? And now you're making us pay more because we didn't have them to begin with. They were sent other places. Like you said, this is a tactic they use in war too, to take soldiers away from their home front. They're not protecting the people they love. They're going overseas somewhere where they don't care about what's going on there. They don't care about those people. And so they're removed in that way. And this is exactly what we saw here, because not only did our people go to Idaho, the people from Idaho came here. I'm calling in trying to get information. He's like, well, I don't really know the area because I'm from Idaho. And I'm like, nobody I talked to knows the area and doesn't understand where I live. They don't, you know, and the people on the ground doing this don't care about here. Like, we care. People who live here really care about this place, you know, and we were like left to stay out of it. And people even we try to go to some of these meetings. Oh my gosh. Like, it was so infuriating. Like, so they had these little like meetings that anybody could come to, and, you know, they're going to have like some head honchos there, and they're going to answer questions. Well, like 5 days in or so, when it's just everything's just burning and burning. We go, like, my partner went to one of these meetings, and he's like, they just didn't say anything. They're acting like they're just sitting there going, well, we're looking at it, we're watching it, we're making a plan, we're seeing what resources we have. Like, how long do you sit there making a plan when you've got fire? You know, fire that's spreading everywhere. Like, how many meetings do you have to have? So every day when I call in to see what's going on, if we have a chance to come back up, I'm like, well, she'd say, well, after the morning meetings. So they have like 3 hours of meetings every morning. They're on this like schedule, like it's just an office job, and they have all these meetings. And then after the meetings, they'll say, okay, well, we've decided today we're closing this road, or we're opening that one, or we're going to have this many people on that fire. I had same friend who volunteered, who said, I've got a chainsaw. He's a strong guy. He's young. He's like, I want to help, when they didn't have any help. Said that he went to one of these fires that had a whole community evacuated. All the crew was just sitting around looking at the fires, like right there. He said it was hardly anything at all. He said he felt like he could go over to it and kick some dirt on it and put it out. And they're sitting there waiting for orders. You know, they're like, they don't decide what to do. Again, chain of command hierarchy. These are the systems, right? It's not people working together. It's always the hierarchy. So it's like they take orders. The firefighters, you know, and a lot of them great people. I know some, you know, willing to risk their lives. A lot of them die, but they're taking orders. They don't make the decisions. So again, we have this situation where, and we have these people coming in, not from here, that self-appointed, you know, authorities suddenly have like with this sort of police power over us. And yeah, and we're just supposed to go along with whatever they tell us because they know better, allegedly.
No, it seems like nobody has a clue of what they're doing. When I used to fight fires over 30 years ago, we had controlled burns. You were talking about fires earlier, and the main reason for controlled burns was to clear an area so we can plant trees. I also planted trees as well. We used to go to areas that we burned, cleared it out, and made room for, you know, the new plantlings so we could redo the forest. And then when we used to fight the fires, we treated it just like they would during war. Okay, this is the plan. We're going to dig a line around here. We're going to protect this, do all of that. And it seems like none of that is in play for these fires. And it just really gets my goat is going, where is the strategy? Where is there any plan to help put out these fires? It just seems like nobody has a clue. It's like, it's like, did we get the people from Romper Room or what? Makes no sense.
There used to be a monicum of, certain things did make sense. We were under conservation, not, you'd go hunting, you'd had hunting season, you controlled the population, you could burn, or clear areas that were too, had too much brush in it. We grew up in an era, post World War II to Vietnam, where a lot of things did make sense. I mean, we know underlying there were a lot of things that were horrible too. So it's not all nostalgia, but things made sense. The closer and closer and closer we get to that Agenda 2030, it's like 50% of the stuff used to make sense, and that's across the board. And then it went, after 9/11 and all that crazy hogwash, or just lies and stuff, we lost the ability to fly, the Patriot Act, and now 50% of what used to make sense, now it's only 30% that makes sense. And after COVID was a line in the sand. They are running to Agenda 2030. And, whether you believe in Satan or not, or, just the earth is, winding down, it doesn't matter. The tempo of all these things that don't make sense, and the emergency crises and the toxins, and the noose is closing, and we are getting closer and closer. So things make no sense at all anymore, and it's frustrating. It's so frustrating.
No, the absurdities are like, yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I'm sorry, Shannon. I've got a couple to throw at you, and then we'll start winding down and go around the horn. And I want to get your comment on this. What you reminded me of, how we rely on the government to do these things for us, as a great example of, okay, well, each state should have their own military, and we'll use the state military to help us during emergencies. And then the federal government means they share power, which they don't. The national government will go in and use your state military and deploy them overseas to kill people that have no effect or bearing on your state. How many times this has been erased, but a quick search, if you dig deep enough, you'll see this. National Guard unavailable for state emergency because they're in Iraq, or they're in Afghanistan, or they're in Somalia, or they're somewhere overseas. Wait a minute. So you called up the part-time soldiers in this state that really had no business being there, supposedly at the beck and call of the governor, and you've got them overseas killing people for the central government, and they can't be here for the fire or the flood or whatever else. That's one great example. You mentioned the corona hoax relief money. So they will steal overwhelming amounts of your money and then say, oh, you know what? We have needlessly crushed you. You can't even put food on the table. Let's go ahead and throw some crumbs of your money back. And in that process, you don't even get those crumbs. I've got article after article, especially of the Catholic Church taking corona hoax relief money and sending it to their rape priest vacation homes. And this is not me making this up. This is Spotlight Mike Resendez, now working for the Associated Press, with phenomenal work still on how the Catholic Church took billions of dollars of corona hoax relief money, stepped in front of the small families and businesses that desperately needed their own tax money back, and stole that on top of all the other crimes being committed. So just wanted to throw those at you and get your feedback, and then we'll go around the horn and close things out.
Well, yeah, that's happening exactly the same thing happening with the fire relief money. supposed to be disaster relief money. I've looked into it. I'm going to look into it again, but nobody gets back to me. There's all these websites. Oh, we give money to people affected by fires and everything. And look at how good all the things we've done. Look at how much money we've given. Where is it? Where is the money for me and my friends? Like, I don't see this money. I don't know how to access it. I'm trying to access it. We had to rely, thank you again for the donations, but we had to rely on that, because they're not giving us this money. And in Hawaii, you heard all these stories of people trying to donate food to people who were, these victims, and they wouldn't let them in. They wouldn't let them give them the donations or the clothing at all. They didn't want food that wasn't from a commercial kitchen. Come on, this is how absurd it's getting. And to what, was said earlier about the absurdities, it's in our faces now. It's like the levels of ridiculousness, like Bill Gates saying that we should bury all the forests to capture carbon. This is, it's like lunacy. It's in like, we should block the sun because of global heat, warming. It's so absurd. And and like with the same thing, like you said, with the National Guard, this is what I'm talking about. Our local people that are supposed to be here for us were not here when we needed them. Why were they somewhere else? Why didn't that state have enough of its own people? Where were they? Were they in another state? It doesn't make any sense. And then suddenly they have that availability from people in the state where our people went. They have people that can come here. This is obviously done intentionally. It's divide and conquer. It's like confusion, chaos, and coming in and out of that confusion and disorder, creating order, right? Jesuit motto.
Yeah, order of theirs, of what they have chosen for the end result of their paradise. Okay, and one more thing is that I wanted to bring this up. There's just not enough time. We need to do multiple parts on this, but well known that smart meters. I wonder now. It's well known that smart meters can cause fires just because of the way they're made. I wonder how hard it would be to use them as a remote detonation for a fire. Probably not that hard at all, but can't help but wonder if they've played a role. Let me quickly go around the horn. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, they turned off the power to the entire county after a few days of when the fire started, because the fire was about to reach the power lines. Now that might have been a good thing to do, because apparently that was a factor in Maui about why it spread so crazily and everything, the power lines. And given that smart meters are combustible, I don't know if that was true or not, but the end result was that we were like, it was like a war zone. Like there's refugees, there's people, whole county without power for over a week. And then like they have to bring in generators. The ridiculousness of like the money, the resources, then there's resources for generators. And they're doing that, and people, their stores, only like the big box stores had generators that were open for a long time. Again, just like the scandemic times, where it's like only certain stores were open, only certain things could be bought. Like the street lights were out. It's just like, it was, amazing. Crazy times.
Shannon, you know how easy it is, Shannon, to simply turn the power off to those small areas where you don't want power going into a full-blown conflagration. And yet all these other outside areas you select to keep the power on so that you don't make things many times worse. But that wasn't their goal. Their goal was to make things many times worse. As I close things out, I'll start with George. I'm sorry, pal, I didn't give you a lot of time, but the star of the show was Shannon, and I'm sure we'll do a part 2, part 3, whatever we need to do. Go ahead, George, and Brett, and then Bill.
Okay, I need to be going in just a moment, but however, as I said, I live in California, and there are 58 counties in the states, and each county, starting in the year 1990, has something called the Climate Action Plan, or CAP. And is modified or updated every decade, so 1990, 2000, so forth. And in this, they set out certain goals for the upcoming decade. So for 1990, they set out certain things they want to accomplish by the year 2000. And I do have a point here. So they said back in 1990, 33 years ago, they said, quote, global warming, close quote, is real, and we need to do something about it now before the century closes. As I said, they were saying this in 1990. Therefore, we need to do everything we possibly can to reduce our carbon emission, well, they didn't say carbon footprint, but basically that sort of lingo. So we need to get uh, have fewer people in vehicles. We need to increase public transportation, increase bike lanes, and I am all in favor of riding a bike and taking public transportation. However, it's one thing if you choose to do that, but it's another thing if you're being compelled to do so. So back in the early 1990s, they were talking about how they could possibly implement this. And they said, well, unless we take action now, there's going to be negative consequences. There's going to be all these unbridled disasters, floods, earthquakes, fires. So what can we do now? Well, we can incentivize employers to say, switch to a 4-day work week. Instead of going to work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, having employees go 4 days a week, 10 hours a day. Okay. Also incentivize people to take the bus or other form of public transportation. Also increase bike.
Yeah, I got you, pal. Not to step on you, pal, but obviously the result is, George, the result is a massive decrease in the quality of life. Just to summarize for you, but I love you, man, but I got to start winding things down. A massive utilizing this, whether it's the corona hoax or the fires, they're still going to take it to the next level of climate change stupid in order to dramatically attack our quality of life. And I've said this before in relation to, oh, it's the Jews, then why is Israel just the most vaccinated nation out there? And the proof of your vaccination is what in Israel? A green card, something that they don't have here in the United States, a green card. They don't need them there, but you do need them there to show that you've been vaccinated. That's the next step. Your vaccination card will now show your carbon credits, I'm sure. That's right around the corner. Shannon, the climate change outrage.
Yeah.
All right, Brent, anything, and then Bill.
Thank you very much for writing that book. I'll hopefully get it soon and be able to read it. And just any shot, whether it's a tetanus shot, they're now getting all the rabid dogs and animals running around, so they're going to try to hit you with a bunch of shots for rabies. So, and I guess we're all learning a lesson. For these global elite Davos, Switzerland 2030 agenda people, urban planning is everywhere, even out in the remote parts of Oregon, Washington State, and Idaho. We are all useless eaters. They want to ride us until we just have nothing left. So, but we'll do the best you can with what you have. And thank you very much for coming today.
Thanks, Brett.
William, I don't know. So it's going to be a heck of a coordination for the next iteration. I don't know if Shannon can do any Sundays. That might be easier for us, but that's up to her. I'll let you coordinate, Bill. Go ahead and close this out.
Sure. First of all, we're really glad that you're safe and that you were able to come on. There's many ways we can support you. One of them is, I always have trouble putting these books up, but that's Wi-Fi Refugee, available at Amazon, like it says behind me there. Also,
and Barnes and Noble.
And Barnes and Noble, that's right.
All
and
the books
also,
are now
speaking of Barnes,
Noble.
I think I ordered this one from Barnes and Noble. I'm not sure. This is a book co-written by John Hamer.
So,
yeah. This is co-written with John Hamer, and it's a really good book. I can't wait to get into it. It's pretty thick. It's it's like a Johnny book.
It's not that bad.
Yeah. And of course, the one we showed earlier, Shots Fired, is also available on Amazon. And what other ways we could help support you during this time?
Yeah, actually, and if you can buy the books directly from me, if you have a little patience, because of my inability to get to town very easily, that helps me more than just buying them on either of those platforms. Donations are still welcome. Thank you for anybody who already has sent donations. I don't know what we would have done without them and without your help. And there is actually a PayPal button on my website, which is wifi-refugee.com. So.
All right, outstanding.
Yeah.
Shannon, I cannot tell you, get on the gallery here, I cannot tell you how absolutely relieved we were to get that update that you and your partner and your fur babies were back all in one piece on your property. It really was, because we were all worried as not knowing, I mean, empathizing with you. Wow, what do I do when, you know, I'm out and burned out of my home, God forbid. So
Yeah.
very excited to have you
you.
back. Very thrilled to have you back on the show and catch up with you. And we'll do the next iteration as soon as we're all able to do so, and we'll coordinate that. So thank you so much for it. And let's keep fighting the good fight. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Love you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Johnny.
Be strong, courageous guys. Take care.